Good evening, I'm Faye Kwan. Our top stories for tonight. Russia expects India to maintain oil imports, and the US hits judges and prosecutors from the International Criminal Court with new sanctions. That and more coming up on AWANI International. Russia expects to continue supplying oil to India despite warnings from the US of reciprocal tariffs. An embassy official in New Delhi says the two countries will find ways to overcome President Donald Trump's latest tariffs in their national interests. The official also adds that Moscow hopes to hold trilateral talks with India and China soon. Trade talks between India and the US had collapsed over the opening of India's farm and dairy sectors and its continued purchases of Russian oil. Last month, US President Donald Trump announced an additional 25% tariff on Indian exports, bringing the total to 50%. Separately, Russian First Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov said Moscow saw potential to expand supplies of liquefied natural gas to India. He noted that Russia was also counting on expanding nuclear energy cooperation with India. The Trump administration has imposed sanctions on judges and prosecutors at the International Criminal Court involved in cases related to Israel and alleged U.S. war crimes. In a statement, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio calls the court a national security threat against the U.S. and Israel.
He said the administration opposed what it described as the ICC's abuse of power and disregard for national sovereignty. France and the United Nations have condemned the move, saying it undermined international justice and judicial independence. The sanctions mark the second round in less than 3 months after 4 ICC judges were targeted earlier. The escalation is expected to impede the court's work, including cases on Russia's war in Ukraine. Last November, ICC judges issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, former Defense Chief Yoav Gallant and Hamas leader Ibrahim al-Masri over alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity in the Gaza conflict. The court has also pursued Afghanistan cases since 2020, including possible crimes committed by US troops.
We'll be back with more after the break. Stay tuned.
Buli di sekolah. Isu ini bukan perkara baru.
Buli tertakluk kepada perbuatan agresif secara fizikal.
Apa sebenarnya jerabu punca utama yang menyumbang kepada masalah ini serta kesannya kepada kesihatan kita?
Mereka akan mengalami iritasi kepada mata. Selain itu, iritasi kepada saluran pernafasan.
When the superpowers move, the ground shifts. Power isn't just about might anymore. It's about narratives, networks, negotiation. We go beyond the noise to deliver laser-focused analysis on how power moves and what it means for the world. This is AWANI International, reporting the shifts in power affairs shaping the world.
Welcome back. US Vice President J.D. Vance says European countries must carry most of Ukraine's security burden, insisting that the US should not bear this responsibility alone. He adds that President Donald Trump also expects Europe to take the leading role in ensuring Ukraine's security guarantees.
Western nations are discussing sending peacekeeping troops to Ukraine if Moscow and Kiev reach a negotiated peace agreement. Several European countries, including the United Kingdom, France, Sweden, the Netherlands and Lithuania, have expressed willingness to contribute troops. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Chief of Staff Andriy Yermak said work was underway on Ukraine's military security guarantees. He said Ukrainian teams, particularly the military, had already begun active preparations after meeting Western and NATO security advisors.
Any attempts to resolve security issues relating to Ukraine without Moscow's participation are a road to nowhere, says Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. He insists that Moscow must take part of any talks on security guarantees, dismissing European diplomacy as aggressive escalation and a clumsy effort to sway Donald Trump.
Lavrov added that China, Russia's ally, should be among Ukraine's security guarantors, reviving a 2022 proposal first raised during talks in Turkey. The proposal then called for guarantees from the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council: China, Russia, the US, Britain and France. European leaders are currently exploring post-war security guarantees for Ukraine after US President Donald Trump pledged US protection under any peace deal. Moscow has repeatedly rejected European troops in Ukraine, one of the guarantees now under discussion.
Amid growing pressure from China, Taiwan will lift its defense spending to over 3% of GDP next year. The cabinet has set their defense spending at $31.27 billion, equal to 3.32% of GDP.
Over the past 5 years, Taiwan has made military modernization a core policy and pledged to raise defense spending against China's growing threat. The proposed budget also allocates funds for the Coast Guard, veterans and special projects, according to official reports. Taiwan is building its own submarines while confronting daily incursions by China's Air Force and regular Chinese war games. Meanwhile, China continues modernizing its forces with new aircraft carriers, stealth fighters and advanced missiles. In March, China announced a 7.2% increase in defense spending to $248.17 billion, outpacing its 2025 growth target of about 5%.
Meanwhile, Israel has begun the first steps of a military operation to seize Gaza City, with forces reaching its outskirts on Wednesday. Brigadier General Faye Kwan says operations around the city are intensifying to dismantle its military presence.
Israel mobilized tens of thousands of reservists for a major assault, while Hamas accused Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of blocking ceasefire efforts. Netanyahu has come under mounting scrutiny as former allies criticize his leadership and more countries announce plans to recognize Palestine. Netanyahu criticized this move, recently escalating attacks on his Australian counterpart, Anthony Albanese. Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres urged an immediate ceasefire to prevent further death and destruction in Gaza.
I must reiterate.
In other news, Israel has given final approval for a highly controversial settlement project in the occupied West Bank, one that would effectively cut East Jerusalem off from the territory and divide it in two. Its finance minister says the move would erase any prospect of a Palestinian state.
On Wednesday, Israel Defense Ministry Committee approved plans for 3,400 homes in the E1 area. The Palestinian Authority condemned the decision as illegal, calling it a direct threat to the two-state solution. Building in E1, an open tract of Palestinian land east of Jerusalem, has been frozen for 2 decades because of strong international opposition. Settlements are illegal under international law, a view backed by the International Court of Justice in a ruling last year. The decision comes as more countries formally recognize a Palestinian state, a step Israel fiercely rejects. The two-state solution envisions a Palestinian state in East Jerusalem, the West Bank and Gaza alongside Israel.
China is calling for closer coordination with Pakistan and Afghanistan following a trilateral meeting in Kabul on Wednesday. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says the 3 countries should continue to build strategic trust and expand security cooperation. He added that China was ready to deepen economic partnerships with Afghanistan through trade, investments and connectivity projects. Reuters reported that Beijing is also focused on stabilizing its borders with both countries, including the region near Xinjiang, amid broader regional security concerns. The 3 countries have held regular trilateral talks since 2017, aimed at boosting regional stability and countering extremism. This week on Wu Says, we revisit some of the most consequential economic transformations of the 20th century in the second part of a 3-part arc. After Poland, the focus now is Russia. Here's an excerpt of the conversation between Melissa Idris and Prof. Emeritus Dr. Wu Wing Tai.
In the case of Poland, the West came in with financial aid, which allowed the government to be able to pay the civil servants to keep it going. And they were able, and they got external aid to buy crucial materials. Like if the factory machine breaks down, all you need is a certain valve. You need the foreign exchange to buy it. The IMF, the World Bank, the US, the Europeans basically took out their wallet and put it on the table and said, take what you want.
Take what you need.
Yes.
Okay, wow.
Because they saw it as temporary.
Okay.
Because once you can get things back to normal, Poland will have lots of a high ability to repay everything.
Okay.
And furthermore, it will no longer be an ally of Russia, which was still
that was the political considerations. Yes.
So when the Russians who were greatly impressed by what happened in Poland because they saw this economic miracle, and at the same time the collapse continued under Gorbachev, and of course the Gorbachev tried to make changes, but his changes failed to work, failed to revitalize the economy. So the establishment, which is the KGB, conducted a coup against Gorbachev. So Gorbachev was arrested in August 1991, and a new person came in. At that time, there was another power center emerged with Yeltsin, and the army split. So there was one group with the KGB, one group with Yeltsin, and they fought the most rational of wars. They sent people to each other side to count how many guns the other side got, how many planes the other side got, and they found out Yeltsin got more guns and more planes. So the other side said, okay, don't kill us, and we'll go back to you win. So yes, that was a very rational war. We see who would win in the end, and say, okay, you would win in the end.
Very practical. Very practical.
Let's not need to fight. Let's win. Let's over. Okay. He took over, and his people wanted to do exactly what the Poles did on the four fronts, which is the free prices,
price liberalization,
and
stop inflation.
They could do, but they wanted to stop inflation. They wanted to have internationalization, but the domestic industries are so powerful that they prevented the internationalization. They said, no, you cannot kill us, we are your strongest supporters. And so he was afraid of the factories closing. He did not internationalize. To buy political support, because Yeltsin now has to have a new election, because a new election as president of Russia. So he privatized the enterprises by basically selling it to people who would donate to his political campaign.
This is the rise of the oligarchs.
The rise of the oligarchs.
Got it.
So this privatization was basically mass stealing, like oil fields of Russia were given to individuals. These are national assets handed to individuals. That's why you got Gododovsky, who founded a company called Yukos, which owned most of the Russian oil. So you could see it was a very corrupt process. And why was that done? Because the Russians were expecting the West to give it the same aid as it gave Poland.
Catch the full conversation of this on all AWANI International social media accounts.
That report wraps up AWANI International for tonight. Stay tuned for our reports on the rivalries, strategies and the shifts behind the power affairs driving the new global order. Visit international.astroawani.com for more and be sure to follow our social media accounts. I'm Faye Kwan. Thank you for watching and good night.